Okay. Hi, welcome to this edition of the Closed Podcast, a MentHer initiative that is focused on conversations with entrepreneurs, investors, and women in leadership. Our guest today is Tabitha Nyariki. She is born in Kenya and now lives in Glasgow. She holds a BSc with honors in applied psychology from Glasgow Caledonian University. She co-founded Kosi Africa, an NGO promoting child literacy in Western Kenya. She's passionate about fairness. She is the youngest board member of the Scottish Fair Trade Forum, advocating for youth engagement in fair trade. And she is currently the Race Equality Charter Project Officer at Glasgow Caledonian University. Welcome, Taz.
No, thank you. I'm all full of a title.
Thank you so much for joining me. Yeah. Cool. So I want to start our conversation with, I'm a big believer in just studying abroad, whether it's a full qualification or a certificate or whatever it is. Fun fact, I've been traveling across Europe and the UK for a month and a half now, which would not have been possible without free accommodation, right? And I had free accommodation because I have the United Nations of friends, including Tab. So I know you studied in Kenya, then you went to Mauritius, and then you came to Glasgow.
Yeah.
And I'm really interested in your experience as a student and how you've been able to create connections and find opportunities globetrotting.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I came to Glasgow Caledonian in 2017 off the back of being in the African Leadership College, which is a college that the university sponsors back in Mauritius. And I think coming here, I came in not knowing anyone. So I only knew two people who'd come with me from ALC. So it was about building my network all over again. And so coming from the African Leadership College, which is very competitive, and everyone there was like a CEO at 18. Everyone had like 500 employees. And I walked in there and I didn't even have a business or an idea of a business or anything of the sort. So coming in here, I knew I honestly got like a clean slate to start all over again in a different competitive environment. And I think one of the things that I did coming in, being an international student, not knowing everyone, is that I knew that now I need to know everyone. So I was putting myself into spaces where I didn't belong, where I thought I didn't belong. I think that's the right thing to say.
Correction,
yes. I thought I didn't belong. So I would go to like events like this. I would see the university hosting events. I'll be like, oh, what's happening here? Sign up, go in my backpack with my jeans and t-shirt off from class, and just coming and meeting people. And that slowly got me known, and people started knowing me on campus, which was great. But then I became the face of the campus. So if you walk around our campus, you probably see different photos of me as I've grown older. Right? So a lot of people, and that's how I made my network.
Yeah.
And then I became a student ambassador because you have to make money as a student. And that gave me the access to like knowing a lot of students from around the world, knowing a lot of staff members who run events. And then that sort of propelled me into student politics, which was fantastic. I never knew I could sell myself that well. And actually, Nsiki right here was my campaign manager. So she
if you ever want to run, give me a call.
I know. So if you want to run for elections, we are a super team.
Yeah.
Right there. You can pay us to run your campaign. And so getting through that, then I created a platform where I was tackling racism on campus. And that sort of led me into this sort of, room of so many people I knew, because that platform allowed me to speak to the principal, to a lot of our exec leaders on our campus, and then get access to mentors through our court governors, because I was lucky enough to sit on university court. And I used all those opportunities to sort of get myself into rooms where maybe I wouldn't have been invited to, and just not being quiet, just being in rooms and speaking about my ideas, speaking about issues on campus, things I'm passionate about. And yeah, it got me here. I sort of got myself a job because now I tackle racism on this campus. So, being noisy sometimes is good. So it's not too bad being too loud. Going back to Nsiki's old slide.
That's good. It does help to be loud. Also, can we get the other slide out? Thanks. One of the things that Steve Jobs says that I really like is that the dots connect when you look back, right? And I think a lot of part of your journey is like you don't really know what you're doing, then one day you look up and you go, oh, that actually worked out. I'm curious to know, are there things that you do that are a deliberate effort, where you go like, here's my map, here's my plan, and this is how we're going to execute? Because I think about people who want to get somewhere but aren't really sure about the first steps to take in order to get there.
See, the honest answer is no. And it's because I feel like I've just been fortunate enough to find myself in positions that sort of become a ripple effect to what next. So I ended up going to ALC because I'd applied to the academy, didn't get in. They called me up, asked me to apply, I applied, got in. Then we got there, and then they couldn't offer my psychology degree, cancelled that. They were like, go to Glasgow. I never intended to come to Glasgow, came to Glasgow, then became a student ambassador. Then somebody was like, you'd be really good at student politics. Never thought of doing student politics. That led me to, sort of doing that. And through that process, also the Magnuson Award, which then led me to studying Kosi after the impact we had after that. So again, moments.
Yeah.
And then getting to student politics and understanding the issues around, tackling racism on our campus, then led me to speaking and campaigning against it, and then getting an NUS award for it, and then sort of getting myself into the employment system here at GCU. Yeah. So it's been moments. I've never really planned it, which I don't know if it's a good thing to say, but it's just been honestly moments and just being in situations where you meet incredible people who either sort of like, how I was involved in tackling racism at GCU is because the former student officer before me was like, oh, I think you'll be really good at, articulating these issues on campus. You should come to this meeting with the vice principal back then. And I was like, I don't even know who this is, and I've never done this before. But I went in, and sort of that became my in, and I became almost sort of the student voice for tackling racism on campus. So it was people I've met, opportunities I've had, and just moments, and just taking advantage of the moments as well. So it's not just about being in the moments, but taking advantage of the moments as well.
I think that's key, because you grab stuff and you run with it.
Oh yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And I think sometimes we kind of double dutch opportunities, and we're like, should I, shouldn't I, should I? And sometimes it's like, no, just grab it and run. They'll figure it out once you're on the inside that maybe you're not supposed to be there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But then it's too late because you're already on the inside. I want to pivot and talk a little bit about Kosi Africa. So actually, before we talk about Kosi, I want to talk about the Magnus Award that you won. I think that's important for students because campus is such a great place to access opportunities. And I think just even being in the entrepreneurship hub today is going, what could come out of this space that you could utilize? So could you speak to a little bit on, how did you know to apply for that, and how you make yourself a suitable candidate, I guess?
No, absolutely. So how I knew is because GCU comms team literally spam you with all sorts of comms. So it's always on the screen, student emails, student newsletters, and there's always some flyer somewhere lying around. So I'd heard about the Magnuson Award actually from a previous winner who was a friend of mine and had mentioned, the Magnuson Award is he'd wanted to do some work in Ghana over eye care. So he was doing free eye care for people in Ghana. And I was like, oh, that's really incredible, because before that, myself and Wycliffe, who's a co-founder of Kosi Africa, we were doing something called $1 Back to School, which was just a small campaign to keep kids in school. So we were not really thinking about scaling up to having an organization or per se. And when he said he was doing this, and like GCU was giving £5,000. So I did the thing that all international people do, £5,000 times, it's 166 to Kenyan shillings.
Yes.
Oh, that's like almost close to $1 million. I'm like, I've never seen money like that in my life. That's great. So I was like, I'll look out for when it comes around, and I'll come up with a good idea.
Yeah.
So then I looked at the application, which is quite straightforward. I think it's just an online form. I think it's still an online form. Yeah. So it's an online form that I looked through, and I was just able to look at some of the things that we were doing, ask advice from like previous winners, and they're all on the website, so you can check and see who's won and get in touch and figure out what they said. So I got some advice from Bright, who's my friend who got the award.
Yeah.
And I was able to sort of suit myself in a way that I got shortlisted, and then I had to go into an interview and sort of explain the project.
Again, don't be afraid to ask.
Yeah, don't be afraid to ask.
Okay, so let's talk about Kosi Africa.
Yeah.
Why is specifically focusing on education in the form of reading an important thing for you?
Well, first and foremost, because of my mom.
Yeah.
And I always speak about my mom, and I'm glad she's here today. So for the first time, she hears me speak. So I got into education because of my mom. So my mom is an advocate for literacy, and she's been an advocate for literacy in Africa before I was born. I think it's 40 years now, almost 40 years. She's been advocating for literacy in Africa. So we grew up in a house where we were reading a lot. I didn't have all those fancy PlayStations because my mom believed reading a book was much better than playing FIFA. Of course it is. But so I grew up knowing the importance of education and the value that it brings to your life, and the doors it opens for you as well. If you have information and you have correct information, your world just opens up, and your ideas as well open up. And I also had the opportunity to meet Wycliffe, who's a co-founder, and he did not have the same privileges I had in terms of education. So he was a street kid and only managed to get back to school because people believed in him. So he dropped out of school about 7 times. But because he'd stayed in school, we somehow found ourselves in the same place. So education was it put us in the same scale. Yeah. We were at the same place, going to get the same degree at the end of it. So the importance of education just sort of sparked our interest. And on top of having my mom who inspires me a lot and champions for reading and education, I was like, I could do more and go beyond and actually continue her legacy in one way or another.
Yeah. So, I mean, I know you guys are an NGO, but I think of you as very much a social enterprise.
Yeah.
How do you guys operate, and what's the work that's happening on the ground in Kenya?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I know. So absolutely, we are a social enterprise because we do try to keep ourselves sustainable. Because I think one of the things we've learned from NGOs that are similar to us is that they get big funding, they do the work, and then the funding runs out. And then what?
Yeah.
The kids still need help, or, whatever the community is supporting still need help. So we've come with projects that are self-generating, and we're working towards making them completely sustainable. So, for example, we have the EduGreen project, which we work with organizations like the Kenya Wildlife Service and Safaricom Foundation and Momo Pencils, which are all organizations back home in Kenya. And we work with them because they have CSR projects where they want to buy seedlings to plant, and then, the whole carbon credit thing and et cetera, just trying to be greener companies. So we go to schools where there's underprivileged kids, and we ask them, do you have a piece of land we could use to plant these trees, to plant these seedlings? So we get the seeds, get them into seedlings, sell them to these companies, and then the money comes back to the kids. Now, what becomes sustainable about this is that the kids actually take care of the seedlings. So then they learn the skills of farming, and then whatever they make from it, we only take back what we used to buy the seedlings to buy more seedlings. So then it becomes a circular thing. So that's one of the projects we do, where they buy the trees, the seedlings, the kids take care of it, they sell it to these organizations, get the money back, educate they keep on educating themselves, buy their uniforms and things like that.
Yeah.
We also have Howie Threads of Change, which is basically we buy them, again, knitting kits, and then they learn how to knit bags, clothes, etc., whatever they want to knit. And then it goes into a company where it's sold, and then all the money comes back to them, and we only take back the money to buy the materials again. And it goes round in a circle, in a circle, in a circle. Yeah. So it's ensuring that we have funding going and ensuring that it can grow. So those are the two projects we sort of have that are sustainable. We have other projects that are funding dependent, because obviously we are still a charity and we're still growing. But those two are sort of the ones that, I hold close and dear, because I feel like once they grow, they can be really sustainable and create big impact.
Yeah, I like that, because it's, for me, it's innovation in action, but it's also thinking about sustainability, which a lot of people...
No, absolutely. And it's also skills, because these kids learn farming skills, they learn knitting skills, and they can use this in the future post working with Kosi and, create an income for them, which is what we want. We don't want people reliant on us. We want people to grow and become entrepreneurs themselves once they leave sort of our programs and what we offer.
Absolutely. Yeah. So with that innovation, I often think about, are people naturally innovative, or do our environments drive us to innovate? So I want to talk a little bit about the administration of setting up a business in Kenya, right? Because, sometimes I watched entrepreneurs from different parts of the continent, and I see how people are able to do so much with so little. And then I see entrepreneurs in South Africa sometimes, and I'm like, yeah, we could do better, guys. I remember the first time I learned that other African countries don't offer credit as easily or at all. Whereas in South Africa, you can. And I always find it interesting how people find ways to get around the challenge. So I want to just map out a little bit of the landscape of setting up a startup in Kenya.
First of all, it's the ghetto. Yes. It's not it. It's really difficult, unfortunately, for many reasons. So our governance, just sort of corruption as well. And also the difficulty of me being in a whole different continent as well, studying an organization based there. So there's a lot of things that you need to have, and they ask for things like police certificate of good conduct, where you have to go physically and they take your fingerprints. But I'm in Glasgow, so I can't just fly to Kenya for a weekend to get fingerprints done. So there's a lot of admin, particularly having been between two countries. But it's also just the processes that it entails and the sort of things they ask for and the sort of documentation. So they wanted us to have a year's worth of board meetings, of minutes of board meetings. We're just starting up where we're going to get board members and board meetings and minutes and all these things.
ChatGPT.
I know this was before ChatGPT. I think if it was after, maybe that's a good idea.
I didn't say that.
But so it's things like that where they're really asking for things that don't make sense. Then again, it comes to the aspect of we have to pay. We are a charity. It's two young people. Both of us didn't have full-time employment at that time. We're lucky now that we both have full-time employment, so we're able to cushion some of the costs that come there. But, we didn't have that sort of income at that time. Then again, they take advantage of you knowing that you're two young people. And so it was a lot. It took about 2.5 years before we got our charity certificate. And when we finally did, I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. This is how it looks. I fought this hard for this piece of paper. It's like getting your degree and being like, oh, this is what 4 years of hard life looks like. That's exactly how it felt like.
And what do I do now?
What do I do now? I have this piece of paper now. Yeah.
I'm curious to think about what happens next, right? So sometimes we have like energy to start something. It's a great idea and it's going to have such great impact. And then it takes 2 years to get set up.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, do I still really want to do this? And so forth. How do you think about the future of Kosi Africa and what keeps you going to realize that dream?
Honestly, it's the kids we impact and sort of what we've seen happen with the work we've done. So for example, what we got from the Magnuson Award was to build a library in Impreza Academy, which is in Western Kenya. And just the impact of them now having books and, being able to have these reading materials. And we also got training for the teachers on library skills, which was really fundamental because most of the schools there had teachers who were just honestly running the libraries as part of like a side gig. They didn't have any training. So it was really good to see that impact. And when you see that, that's just what keeps us going. And then also looking at people like Wycliffe, who his story is basically a story of they didn't give up on him. He dropped out of school 7 times, but every time somebody came back and took him back to school. So that keeps us going, thinking if we could be whoever that was for Wycliffe, then we've impacted more people like Wycliffe and can become incredible human beings who start amazing organizations and innovations and change the world.
Yeah. I love that. So I want to wrap up our conversation with 2 things, right? So the Close podcast is about how we are able to close stuff. So firstly, I want to ask you, what has been like the biggest thing you've been able to close? And it doesn't have to be big in terms of like, that was a lot of money, but like something that's happened with Kosi Africa that you were like, man, I can't believe we did that.
We managed to get JP Morgan on board to help us build our sort of database and sort of technical bit of it. And honestly, to date, I still don't believe it. Like I said, I'm like, JP Morgan? Like legit, JP Morgan? Actually, like
you did that.
I did that. So I think that was like the biggest thing when we actually got and signed the contract and we were able to, get them started on our new sort of funder board and our website and sort of everything we do that needs tech. That was just, it was incredible.
That's pretty cool. Congrats on that.
Thank you.
And then the last question is, what is it about you when you walk into a room that allows you to close?
I think I just smile a lot. I just smile a lot and
friendliness.
I smile a lot and I just talk to people. Yeah,
that is key. Just talk, right? Because people also want to talk. And everyone was also shy. And they're like, what are they going to think?
Maybe I low-key like stock and then know things about people.
You come in prepared.
I can't be saying that on camera though.
You come in prepared.
I come in prepared. That's the right thing.
You match the preparation with a smile.
Yeah, so I come in prepared and I know Nziki is this incredible person who's done XYZ. And a fun fact, walk in and say, oh, I heard you did a TED Talk. Conversation starter. So I smile and I learn about people who I want to interact with so that I can have organic conversations with them. I think that's
a legit pro.
Cut that, my first answer, and then put that.
I love it. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
That is this episode of the Close podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. It was an absolute pleasure having a conversation with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Thanks. I'm going to cut. Yes.